But let's tell you the big story that we are breaking right at the very top, because there is more ally trouble now for the ruling NDA. The Lok Janshakti Party, the Bihar-based party, has threatened to quit the LJP, threatened to quit the NDA a day after the Akali Dal withdrew support. Its leader, Chirag Paswan, has claimed that unless he gets 42 seats in the forthcoming Bihar elections, he will fight the election on his own. This is the threat which has now been made, according to sources close to Mr. Paswan, that he too is now threatening to quit the NDA, at least in Bihar, as far as the elections are concerned. So there you have the next big ally who is threatening to quit. Rahul Srivastava, our National Affairs Editor, is joining us. Rahul Srivastava, is this muscle flexing by Chirag Paswan ahead of the elections, asking for more seats, or is there more to it than meets the eye? Is he serious now about fighting the Bihar elections on his own?
Rajdeep, over the last few years, the BJP has lost several allies, because somewhere the BJP, the allies had a feeling that the BJP was acting like the big brother. But Rajdeep, there is a bit of a difference in as far as this case of LJP is concerned. If you notice what LJP and Chirag Paswan especially have been saying, not one word against the BJP. Actually, they have targeted the JDU. I think this is the NDA Parivar trouble. The LJP has a very aggressive 4% vote, which is critical, especially if you come to those constituencies which are reserved constituencies. And the BJP definitely needs it. But somewhere when it asks for 42 seats, it's basically saying that 7 assembly segments in each Lok Sabha constituency. We have 6, so give us 42. The problem here is that is it only for getting more seats, or somewhere there is a kind of a equation happening between the BJP and the LJP, that by making LJP ask for more seats, it ensures that LJP does get more seats, and perhaps Nitish gets a smaller cake. If that happens, eventually there is a possibility the BJP could be looking at in which it emerges as a senior player. The BJP right now is denying it. The LJP is not uttering a single word against the BJP. JDU is very firm.
Right.
No, we don't want to give seats. Issues of seat distribution have to be decided by the BJP. I think within the Parivar, there is a tussle going on in which the issue needs to be settled by the BJP, because the LJP is not against the BJP till now.
Point taken. Rahul Srivastava suggesting that this is an attempt in a way to possibly corner Nitish Kumar, the Chief Minister of Bihar, ahead of the elections. Interesting development there taking place with the LJP now flexing its muscles. Thanks very much, Rahul Srivastava, for joining me. Now remember, over the last 6 years, the BJP has been losing allies across the country. Over the weekend, the Shiromani Akali Dal, its oldest ally, left the alliance over the farm bill. They claim that the farm bill is anti-farmer, and remember, it's become a big issue in Punjab. Last year, the BJP lost its original Hindutva ally, Shiv Sena, which went and tied up with the NCP and Congress to form the government in Maharashtra. And now in Bihar, you have the LJP, which wants to use the elections to carve an independent identity in a way for itself, and perhaps put pressure on the Nitish Kumar government in particular. What does it all mean? The big question, is the NDA over? Do we now really only have a BJP government at the center? To answer that question, I'm joined by senior Akali leader, its leader in the Rajya Sabha, Naresh Gujral joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Gujral. Shiv Sena last year, Akalis this year, possibly Chirag Paswan in a few days. Does the NDA exist at all? Is this only a BJP-led government, a Narendra Modi-led BJP government? Do the allies feel they've been treated unfairly?
Rajdeep, quite frankly, last 6 years, NDA has really existed only on paper. We would hardly ever meet. And whenever we did meet, no substantive issues were ever discussed. I raised this quite a few times earlier on, even in the media, but there was hardly any response.
So you're giving us an important news point. You are saying the NDA has for the last 6 years existed only on paper. I want to understand, is that according to you the oldest ally of the party, the big difference between the Vajpayee years of the NDA and the Modi years where the BJP is much more assertive and less caring about the allies?
There's a huge difference, and I have said it publicly time and again, that what was required was a Vajpayee touch. That was a rainbow coalition, but even the smallest of the partners was given due respect. Their views were taken into account. Now, for example, I took it up many times that there is not one Sikh governor in the country today. There is not one Sikh vice chancellor of a central university. Even in the minority commission, eventually, for years they did not have a Sikh, and when they did appoint a Sikh, we were not consulted. He came through the Rashtriya Sikh Sangat. So these were issues which we were bringing up time and again, but no, there was no hearing given to us.
Now, are you telling me, Mr. Gujral, today that the Akali Dal was not treated with respect in the last 6 years, the respect that you claim you had during the Vajpayee regime, the so-called Vajpayee touch? Prakash Singh Badal could dial Vajpayee ji and Advani ji anytime. Is that what you are saying? That Narendra Modi, and I'm asking you specifically, is unable to follow the coalition dharma like Mr. Vajpayee did?
Unfortunately, that is true. And it is not that we were not treated with respect. No partner of NDA was treated with respect. Whether it was Shiv Sena, don't forget Shiv Sena and Akali Dal are the oldest allies of NDA. In fact, we were the founders of NDA. But thereafter also, you saw JDU come in, JDU walk out, Mr. Paswan, all these people who have come in, many have left also and then come back again. We too have been the only two steadfast partners. And Akali Dal was the only party which never had any conditions. We always supported them unconditionally, and even Mr. Badal, senior Mr. Badal, has said it so many times on record that our support is unconditional. Yet, despite that unconditional support, I'm sorry, no accommodation was granted to us.
You know, the flip side, of course, Naresh Gujral, is that the BJP today will turn around and say, Narendra Modi is the vote catcher. All of you need Narendra Modi ji for your votes. Parties like the Akali Dal and Shiv Sena have lost credibility, and therefore it is the Modi factor. You need the NDA, you need the BJP, you need Mr. Modi to fight elections.
Well, the coming elections will show who stands where. We are a 100-year-old political party. We've been in government several times. Mr. Badal has been Chief Minister of Punjab 5 times. If today they feel that we are irrelevant and they are relevant, I guess in 2022, when state elections take place, we will know who's right.
Why has Prakash Singh Badal, the senior most leader in a way in the country, not picked up the phone, spoken to Narendra Modi? Surely a veteran leader like Mr. Badal could have carried more weight. Could he not have solved this issue with Mr. Modi rather than the bickering that we've seen in the last few weeks?
Well, I think in a situation like this, the onus lies on the government, not on Mr. Badal. We were the aggrieved party. We are a party of the peasants. We are a party of the agriculturists. We have been pointing out time and again that this will not go down well with the agriculturists. But if they didn't want to hear us, or if they didn't want to pay any heed to what we were saying, you can see what is happening in the streets of Punjab today.
See the Akali Dal, Mr. Gujral, returning to the NDA in the next few months ahead of the 2022 assembly election in Punjab. Is this some game of brinkmanship? Will the two allies eventually come together? No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests?
Rajdeep, I don't think so. Basically, you must understand that people in Punjab are very angry, and especially the peasantry. And I think what is missing here is the Arun Jaitley factor. He was the only BJP leader who had read the history of Punjab, who understood the ethos of Punjab, who understood the culture of Punjab. I think today they do not have another leader who understands all this. And unless you understand these factors, you cannot understand how the people of Punjab feel today. And don't forget, for centuries, the peasantry in Punjab, they fight when they feel that there is injustice or oppression. And that is exactly the feeling they have today.
You know, it's interesting you're saying this, but the Shiv Sena last year told us that they are missing Pramod Mahajan as a cementing factor. Today you are saying Akali Dal is missing Arun Jaitley. Are you saying the BJP today has a shortage of leaders who can build and retain alliances?
I think two things. Nobody is really empowered in the BJP to deal with the allies. We all get lip service, but unlike in Arun Jaitley, who could take decisions, who could take our grievances right to the top, today that link is missing, number one. Number two, I think, like I said earlier, Arun Jaitley was a Punjabi. He understood the problems of Punjab. He understood how people in Punjab feel about different issues. He was very mindful of the fact that the reason why we went into this coalition was to ensure communal harmony in Punjab. And I must say, Mr. Badal and Mr. Vajpayee getting together at that stage, you would remember post Mrs. Gandhi, the entire harmony of Punjab had been disturbed. And this has helped. For 30 odd years, we have communal harmony back in Punjab, and I do hope steps would be taken so that this harmony does not get affected in any way.
Naresh Gujral, I appreciate your joining us because you've given us a sense of why you believe the coalition dharma no longer works at the moment at the center. But remember, the BJP at the moment is a majority party, unlike the Vajpayee years. Naresh Gujral speaking to me a short while ago on exactly why the Akalis have left, in a way targeting the central BJP leadership over those farm bills. In fact, those controversial farm bills that became law over the weekend are simply getting to become a bigger and bigger controversy. Farmer groups in some parts of the country, especially Punjab, are refusing to budge and have hit the streets. Protests today were held in several states against the farm bills and the Modi government. There was a Karnataka Bandh and opposition leaders took to the streets in several opposition ruled states as well. The Congress is trying to use these protests to make some kind of a comeback within the farm community. Let's take a look at how the politics of farmers is now playing out on the ground.
Farmers in several parts of the country are on the war path against the contentious farm bills. And now these protests have reached the national capital. The protests in Delhi turned ugly after suspected Congress workers set a tractor on fire near India Gate. A political war of words soon followed.
आज तक जनता ने आंदोलन देखे, लेकिन ट्रक में से ट्रैक्टर लाकर वो इंडिया गेट के पास जलाना, ये कांग्रेस का नाटक है, इसकी हम भर्त्सना करते हैं।
अगर मेरा ट्रैक्टर है, मैं फूकना चाहूँ दोनों की तकलीफ है।
Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh himself sat on a symbolic protest in the ancestral village of freedom fighter Shahid Bhagat Singh.
We are going to the Supreme Court. क्योंकि साडा agriculture is a state subject, वो साडा फैसला सी under the Act and the Constitution. Constitution ने सारे को लिखी सी, और ये बगैर सानू पूछे ये करना, this is totally unconstitutional जो करना हुई है.
Protests have spread from Punjab and Haryana to other parts of the country. A statewide bandh was observed across Karnataka by pro-farm organizations.
We are continuingly the protest. Today also Karnataka Bandh, called the Karnataka Bandh. All over Karnataka Bandh is successful against that bill. Next, continue October 2, we are planning to hunger strike one day.
Karnataka Congress Chief D.K. Shivakumar and Congress's Rajdeep Sardesai met the farmers to extend their support.
जब किसान और खेत मजदूर अंगड़ाई लेता है तो इस देश की सत्ता बदलती है, इस देश का सिंहासन डोलता है। मोदी जी तैयार हो जाइए, अब किसान और खेत मजदूर आता है, सिंहासन खाली करो।
With Anand Patel, Bureau Report, India Today.
Questions then on the big farm debate. Have the farmer protests now become a case of pure politics? Is the Congress seeking to ride piggyback on farmer anger to target the Modi government? Is the Modi government simply implementing what has already been promised all these years by the UPA? Is this political opportunism by the Congress, or is it adamancy on the part of the Modi government? Just some of the questions we'll raise today. I'm joined by Sudhanshu Trivedi, BJP's Rajya Sabha MP, Supriya Srinath, Congress spokesperson, and Yogendra Yadav, President Swaraj India. I appreciate all three of you joining us. Supriya Srinath, let me start with you, because the accusation against the Congress is you are doing nautanki or drama. Your youth Congress leaders bring a tractor to India Gate, bring it down and then burn it, only to, in a way, create some kind of a stir. This is drama. This is not really farmer protest. This is Congress trying to ride in some way on some element of farmer anger, that too in a couple of states like Punjab and Haryana.
Thank you for inviting me on the show, Rajdeep. I mean, one thing is certain, that nobody can deny people the right to protest, including the Indian farmers and politicians. Now, this was a symbolic gesture. To the best of my knowledge, as I've been told and it has been reported, it was an old tractor, but it has grabbed the attention. And I'm not saying yours, but of many other news networks who wouldn't touch the story with a barge pole otherwise. So I'm glad at least the issue is being debated. The reality is that the farmer bills that have been brought in, the law that has been changed, is extremely anti-farmer. And the farmer is up in arms. This protest is no longer restricted to just Punjab and Haryana. It's happening in Lucknow, in Andhra Pradesh, in Haryana, in Agratala, you name the place, and farmers
are they farmers or are they political activists of the Congress?
Protest,
are they farmers or are they political activists of your party, ma'am?
No, absolutely there are farmers. There are absolutely farmers all over the country who are up against this. Within 5 days of when these bills were signed, the farmers were out on the streets. 250 farmer organizations have been protesting tooth and nail. Politicians, of course, give a voice to this protest, and I don't think we can be denied that right. But the reality is that the farmers in this country are being shortchanged, and if we are expected to look the other way, we're not prepared to do so, because we're not the BJP. We take our people into consideration. We will take and keep the farmers' interests alive and topmost. We are not like the BJP, who's going to roughshod over farmers for some petty corporate interests.
I'll come to that argument that you make about that this is being done for petty corporate interests. But Sudhanshu Trivedi, the politics of it, has somewhere the BJP failed to recognize that farmers need to be spoken to? You need to interact with them. You can't just bring in the law and then say we will talk to the farmers, then the Prime Minister addresses the nation. You have to take the farmers into confidence. Somewhere that has been missing. That's why the farmers today feel, maybe a section of them, that the government is anti-farmer. Koi baat to kare unse.
Yes, Rajdeep, you have raised a very valid question and I will answer properly. But first I would like to comment. देखिए सुप्रिया जी के मुंह से बात निकल गई ना, कहते कहते दिल की बात जुबान पे आ ही गई कि अगर ये ट्रैक्टर नहीं जला होता तो शायद मीडिया में ये न्यूज़ ही नहीं बनती. It is very clear now that this was just to make the media news, not about the serious thing as far as the political or the farmers' genuine case is concerned. Rajdeep, there's so many visuals which have been shown in your TV set. Congress flags, CPM flags, JDS flags, where are farmers? When CA and RC was going on, they were claiming there is no party flag. This is a genuine movement. Today, everywhere is a party flag. It is a genuine movement. So I am unable to understand what is their fundamental logic is. And as far as the consultation is concerned, Rajdeep, I would like to remind, when we made our manifesto, we have put consultation from every district of the country. We have taken 4 crore feedback, 40 million feedback, and then formulated our manifesto. So nobody can say that they were not. And even The blind ballot boxes were there. Anybody can come.
Sir, your own ally has left you.
But
your own ally, if you cannot convince your own ally, the Akalis, how will you convince the farmers?
But the politics is, I would just like to quote one sentence, and if you can understand this, the Congress will repeal the Agriculture Produce Market Committee Act and make the trade in agriculture produce, including the export and interstate trade, free from all restrictions, the Congress manifesto. After whose consultation you have written? On your own. The Essential Commodities Act 1955 belongs to the age of control and Congress will demolish it, finally finish it. भाई हमने तो कंसल्ट करके किया था, आपने कंसल्ट करके किया या नहीं, तो मेरा तो सिर्फ ये कहना है, वहां भी केवल लिखने के लिए लिखा था, यहाँ भी लिखने के लिए लिखा. We have done a serious consultation, making a manifesto, we committed, we done it, and exactly what they are doing. Communist Party is asking question, is there agriculture, APMC Act is there in Kerala?
Can I please come in?
I want an answer.
Okay, Supriya Srinath, you can now come in to answer the basic question, which I've been asking for a few days now, that the Congress is being accused of hypocrisy. That you, in your manifesto, did also want the dismantling and the repeal of the APMC Act to break, in a way, the monopoly of the mandis. So today, when Narendra Modi does it, why attack him?
I'm glad that question is being asked because the BJP has done some selective reading and quoting of our manifesto. And because I take special interests in the written word, I will tell you what we said, which Mr. Trivedi will of course not quote to you. In our manifesto, we have categorically stated that there should be development of many more accessible markets for the farmers in small towns, in large villages, and once that is done, APMC Act can be repealed. There is no denying that agriculture needs reforms, but you need to take step number 1 to 10 to get to the pedestal of step number 11. You cannot roughshod over 1 to 10 and get to 11. That's what the BJP is doing. Create markets, ensure there is an MSP, and I will just say one thing. If Mr. Modi is so serious about ensuring MSP, like Mr. Trivedi and his other...
Okay, your image seems to have... Yes.
Below the MSP. That's all that we are saying. That's all that we are asking for. And I'm glad Mr. Trivedi is saying what he is, because they are really not smelling the coffee, sir. And the coffee, if you smell it, will tell you that farmers are up in arms against you all over the country. I am glad you are roughshodding them, because they are going to teach you a lesson like nothing else will. Wait and watch.
Okay, wait and watch. They will teach you a lesson. I'll come back to the BJP Congress in a moment. But to be fair, Yogendra Yadav is someone who has been raising farm issues for a long time. Yogendra Yadav, do you believe that these protests are just political theatre, or is there something more to it, Mr. Yadav, that it requires, in a way, this kind of burning of a tractor at India Gate to draw media attention? Or do you believe this is genuine farmer anger? Is it only confined to a few states and a few crops?
Rajdeep, it was very amusing to listen to Mr. Trivedi. Now I can understand a North Indian politician who is not familiar with what happens in South India. And incidentally, that is the problem that most allies have with BJP, who doesn't recognize flags. It so happens that I not only recognize flags, I actually recognize the person your correspondent was speaking to. That is Mr. Nagendra, who is the president of Karnataka Rajya Ragyat Sangha, founded by Nanjudas Swami. Nothing to do with Congress, nothing to do with BJP. These are people who for last 25 years have opposed all regimes. It so happened that on 25th, I traveled about 200 kilometers in Haryana and in Punjab. Narwana, Ratia, Mansa, and finally up to Patiala. I can tell you, not a single Congress banner. There was one Akali Shamiana minus the farmers, but there was one Akali Shamiana, not a single Congress flag. And the organizations which have actually been leading the fight are the ones who were gheraying Mr. Amrinder till 6 months ago. So where is the Congress? And incidentally, Rajdeep, if Congress had that kind of capacity to create farmers' movement in the country, it wouldn't be sitting with 50 MPs in the Lok Sabha. So let's get real. The issue is not whether Congress is or any other opposition party is not trying to benefit. Of course, every opposition party tries to benefit from any movement which is real, which is on the ground. The real question is the entire movement sponsored, ignited, created, faked by Congress? Now, you really have to be a real Gandhi loyalist to believe that Congress has the capacity to create anything like this. At least I don't.
No, but the real question also is, Yogendra Yadav, whether outside Punjab and Haryana there is any popular anger. Let's be very clear, Nanjun Swami has in the past also objected to any attempt in a way to open up the farm sector. So it's not his group when he was, there. So it's not as if that these are old positions which appear to have got a new, in a sense, momentum because of what the government has done.
Of course, these are very old positions. And of course, what the government has done is something which has rattled the farmers. So the real issue is, have these three laws rattled the farmers? And the simple reason, Rajdeep, is that farmers feel that it is bad faith. It is brought in at the time of a pandemic, during lockdown, three legislations which have nothing to do with pandemic, with lockdown or farmers' needs, brought in without consultation. I would like Mr. Trivedi to please name two farmer organizations which his party consulted before the ordinance or even after the ordinance. The manner in which it was pushed through the Lok Sabha, the shameful episode in Rajya Sabha, and the fact that they are legally also doubtful. So obviously farmers feel something is strange, something is amiss.
But I will still ask you, Yogendra Yadav, when you say farmers feel something is amiss, are we talking of all farmers or a small group of farmers who benefit from rice and wheat MSP? There are other farmers who are cash crop growing farmers who may have a very different view. I had Mr. Chengal Reddy on my program a few days ago, a farmer from South India who had a very different view, said, why not, why shouldn't farmers try and take advantage of these laws?
Rajdeep, that is why I'm saying, and I'm saying with full responsibility, please bring two farmer organizations with some mass base on the program who defend this. Even the RSS is unable to defend it. Kisan Sangh of the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh of the RSS is unable to defend it. No farmer organization with any following is able to defend it. This is not just Haryana, Punjab. As you yourself said, this we in All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee, which is a group of about 200 plus farmers organizations, we have got reports. Last when I saw the reports were from nearly 10,000 spots in the country where the Bandh was observed on the 25th. Ever heard of farmers protesting against a bill within 5 days of its being passed? It was such a spontaneous upsurge. I was traveling. Farmers without any organizational banner. They had created barriers outside the village. I said, कौन से organization के हैं? कहते जी कोई organization नहीं, हमें नहीं पता, सरकार कुछ गड़बड़ कर रही है और हमने organization छोड़ी, हम खड़े हो गए.
सरकार कुछ गड़बड़ कर रही है, meaning what? Are the farmers being misled, or are the farmers convinced that this is not in their interest?
Yes.
Rajdeep, any regime, this is the last argument of any regime. Now just imagine if the government says they are bringing a great legislation for freedom of media and journalists, and you find all the journalists on the street, what would the government say? They are being misled. The simple answer is farmers have genuine and real apprehensions. The real apprehension is, number one, that the mandis will not be officially dismantled, but within 2 or 3 years, they would start crumbling because of the uneven competition they would have to face. The real fear is that the government is going to withdraw from investment. The real fear is that the MSP regime will never be officially withdrawn. But because you would not have APMCs, MSPs would become redundant. These are the real genuine apprehensions.
Let Sudhanshu Trivedi, you've heard Yogendra Yadav, and there is something to be said that the government in a pandemic, without adequate consultation, brings in these farm reforms. Is this the moment to do it? At a time when the farmers actually need income support. This is not the moment surely to scare the farmers. Even let's assume that they are being misled. In a pandemic, is this the time to do it when supply links have broken in any case, Mr. Trivedi?
Rajdeep, in this pandemic, we have just a couple of days back announced the MSP, the revised MSP. And we have provided so much, 80 crore people were provided food. Farmers were given 6,000 rupees. Ujjwala Yojana, there were 8 crore women were given free cylinder. Till the month of November, it's not the issue. But I am amazed that such a well-read person like Mr. Yogendra Yadav was unable to quote a clear-cut sentence from the Act that does any sort of damage to it. and he was saying, quoting one person, I have not said that no farmer organization is there. He has got stuck to that Karnataka leader. Yes, of course. But how he is deliberately or deceitfully lost the both things, the vision and the voice. Supriya Shine ji herself was defending the act of the Youth Congress, and he's saying no politics. And you can go back and you see the
I still ask you, has the government rushed through something without thinking it through?
Now coming to the government, whatever we have done with proper consultation when our manifesto was made. आपने पूछा कि जब जिस समय 370 या ट्रिपल तलाक करा था फिर रेफरेंडम कराया जाए? नहीं, हम तो पूछ के करते हैं. I said 4 crore feedbacks were there. So we have taken a proper consultation, and finally what we say, we do. It's not like others that they say something else and do something else. And finally, I would like to ask, is APMC Act there for food and vegetable in Punjab? Say yes or no. And if APMC Act is there in Kerala, say yes or no.
Supriya Shine, at the end of the day...
Can I please just add one sentence?
Yes, please do. Please do.
I just have one thing to ask Mr. Trivedi. Bihar is a state where there is no mandi, right? And the average income of a farmer in Bihar is 1,652 rupees. In Punjab, it is 12,481 rupees. Does the government not want to end this disparity? And it is because Bihar, the procurement happens at all sorts of prices, and then the same procurement is gone and sold in other places at exorbitant rates. Instead of ring fencing and protecting the farmer, you are actually exposing him to exploitation. And one more thing I will say in the less than 10 seconds. You accuse us because you do selective reading of our manifesto. What about the statements made by Mr. Jaitley and Ms. Sushma Swaraj, God bless both their souls, because it almost seems that your stand on this issue is on matters of where you sit in parliament. You were tooth and nail opposed to dismantling of the APMC. You even said this is the ATM. Today your position has completely changed, even though we were not going to dismantle the APMC the way you are going to do it. So there is a lot of double-speak and hypocrisy on that end, because they don't realize 80% of India's farmers have land holdings of less than 2 acres. You are going to put them without any ring fencing before huge corporates, and I don't know what chances and ring fencing do they have with negotiations. You are expecting them to go and appeal their cases with SDMs. What are we talking about?
Sudhanshu Trivedi, is the farmer being, while I think most people would support the opening up of markets. When you open up markets, you also need a safety net. The concern is, where is the safety net?
The safety net is, number 1, nothing can be done on the land. Number 2, in case of failure of agreement, only the input cost can be retrieved. Number 3, in a case of any conflict, the judgment has to be in 30 days. And Rajdeep, I would like to remind, when the private TV channels came in 1998, you were in the first 24-hour private TV channel. ये दूरदर्शन बंद हो गया क्या? Is that improved or gone back? Private universities and colleges came in 91. Betterment हुआ कि कम हुआ? अरे पहले घड़ी भी बनती थी सरकार से, HMT, TV भी बनता था सरकार से, Uptron.
Sir, across the world, farmers get protected.
Everything else.
Sir, we cannot compare. Surely, we cannot compare the opening up of Doordarshan. We cannot just split it. We are now comparing the,
including developed nations, protects its farmers.
Okay.
भाई आपने लिखा क्यों है मुझे ये बता दीजिए. और
come on, Mr. Trivedi, are you going to compare private channels to farmers?
Whether in fruit and vegetable APMC Act is there or not in Punjab, say yes or no. And whether APMC Act is there in
Kerala,
Kerala,
Mr. Trivedi,
yes
I'm asking
no.
you a simple question.
What is the simple?
Very simple question.
Mr.
Say yes or
Trivedi,
no.
I'm asking you a simple question. And the question is, you are, 1 second, chillaiye mat. Why are you shouting up? Please answer a simple question. Are you going to compare private TV channels entry and Rupert Murdochs of the world to India's farmers? Just answer that, because that is where the answer to my question lies. You see agriculture and farms through tinted glasses of corporates. Because it's a 25 lakh crore business that it generates, you want to get the corporates in somehow, and that is exactly what you're doing. And I'm telling you one thing, I am not against reforms.
Many corporates are already there in Punjab.
But guarantee the farmer protection.
Rajdeep,
Okay.
Rajdeep,
Yes.
I have asked thrice, but Supriya ji was unable to give an answer whether Punjab is having. Okay, leave it. But I want an answer. If somebody is having problem, ye contract kheti. Batai kya? What is batai? This is not contract farming without any legal cover. Say yes or no.
Sir, no.
They should not have a legal
Sudhanshu ji,
cover.
I don't think you have exposure to Indian agriculture at all then.
80% खेतों में बटाई होती है.
Let's, while we will, rather, this is not the channel that wants to promote noise.
Sir,
we want to hear
both
both sides. Just a minute, ma'am. Just a minute. Yogendra Yadav, I turn to you whenever I need to break away from the noise of the BJP Congress battle. The truth is, the farmer has, in a way, never got the kind of remunerative prices he or she desperately needs. Their incomes have not been doubled. Farming is becoming unremunerative. Let's be honest. Young people are leaving farming. All our polls show many young sons and daughters of farmers don't want to do farming. There's a larger structural crisis. Is that going to be looked at or not?
And that's a real point, Rajdeep. The real thing is not Congress versus BJP. That's a sideshow, that's a red herring. But the real issue is state versus the farmers. That's the real battle we are witnessing. You are absolutely right. Indian farming faces a structural crisis. And the trouble is no one is interested in responding to it because that would require money. The trouble is no government has the political will to put in serious amount of money. Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi was mentioning all those things, which are routine policies of the government. There's nothing new here. Solving the problem of farmers, and remember, in every single country all over the world, and I'm serious about it, there's not a single country today where agriculture is not seriously subsidized. The problem in our country is that farmers get negative subsidy. And this is not a metaphor. This is out of a study created by ICRIER and OECD. Farmers have been penalized in this country. No government has the political will to actually convert it into a positive subsidy, which is what the farmers need. So every now and then you come up with these flimsy solutions because it won't cost my pocket anything. I don't want to spend anything, but I want to be seen to be doing something to farmers. I want to gift them something which they never asked for. I want to gift them something which they are resisting. I want to be seen as a great reformer. The real problem is that there is no will to address the real questions. Yes, agriculture needs to be reformed. Yes, APMCs need to be reformed. If you want to reform APMCs, why is it that BJP itself has not implemented the model APMC Act brought in by Mr. Vajpayee's government? Yes, contract farming needs to be looked at. For Mr. Trivedi's benefit, there is not one single word in this law about batai and thekedari that you spoke about. You should read the law before commenting on these things. The real issue is that farmers are feeling neglected, and the little protection they had, the little roof that they had over their head, which was a leaky roof, it's a kacha roof, it's a leaky roof, BJP seems to be saying to them, or that's what the farmers are hearing, that the roof is very bad, it's leaky, it's patchy, let's do away with the roof at all. You can see stars, you can see blue sky, that would be freedom. Farmers are saying, no, we don't need that freedom.
Let me leave it there. I've heard three
clear...
No,
Rajdeep, I want to say one sentence.
You will have one sentence only.
One sentence I would like to say.
Yes.
Yogendra Yadav ji has said, not even a single word of batai, sir, you go, there is a provision of three-partite agreement. The owner, the person doing farming, and the trader. So there is a clear-cut provision of three-partite agreement also, which includes the batai person. So that's why I'm saying. And also, read December 2013 WTO agreement, which the UPA has done, and what we have vetoed in July 2014 in Bali. Otherwise, by this time, we would not have been in a position to give MSP. We would have been legally bound.
Okay.
I will ask the
gentlemen, I'm going to call time out on this debate because I want to leave it here. I think we've heard three clear views. It is obvious that the farmer issue is not going away. The Kisan today controls 70%, in a way, 70% of our households have some links to agriculture or the other, and we cannot ignore it. And I'm glad in a way that it's taken some of these protests for us in the media to start looking at this issue seriously, to start examining the farm reform laws more seriously. Welcome back. Continuing our focus on farmers, while we talk about it in studios, what is the reality on the ground when it comes to MSP or minimum support price? The Modi government says that the new farm laws will get the farmers better prices for the produce. The opposition claims that the state-run APMC mandis are the ones which can guarantee those minimum support prices. The truth is, in many parts of India, farmers eventually are forced to go in for distressed sales and often don't even get the MSP. India Today hit the ground for a reality check. This is what our investigation team found.
Pandemonium in Parliament. Anger outside. This as the new legislation seeks to ease long-standing rules around sale and pricing of farm produce. One of the two bills approved by Parliament enables growers to sell their crops directly to institutional buyers, supermarket chains and online grocers.
सरकार बोल रही है एमएसपी तोड़ेगी, अगर एमएसपी नहीं मिलेगी हमें हमारी फसल का पूरा हक नहीं मिलेगा तो हम क्या करेंगे?
ये तो जो है किसान के लिए जीते जी मारने की बात है उसे। ये तो अन्नदाता के लिए खुद ऐसा कर दिया इन्होंने कि आत्महत्या करने पर मजबूर हो जाएंगे वो लोग।
Farmers fear the move would eventually end assured prices from the MSP system. As protests raged, India Today's special investigation team reached out to private traders in Punjab and Haryana. Turns out many of them offer no competitive prices to farmers. This is Vishal Jindal, a grain merchant and commission agent at Khanna in Punjab. Remember, Punjab's procurement window for wheat lasted for a month and a half till the end of May. The produce was procured at the existing MSP of 1,925 rupees per quintal. But when our reporters, posing as farmers from Haryana, probed this wholesaler in Punjab, he offered to buy the stocks of wheat much below the MSP.
जो गेहूं की बात है वो तो इन्होंने मंडी में 14.5 रुपए रेट है। एमएसपी क्या चल रहा है? एमएसपी तो पहले था 1925, उसकी तो परचेज खत्म हो गई गवर्नमेंट। अब सस्ता मिल जाएगा, अब तो सस्ता जाएगा। 1650, 1650। बढ़िया क्वालिटी का, बढ़िया क्वालिटी तो बड़ी होगी, हल्की क्वालिटी का तो और उनका रेट है। पेमेंट हाथ में कैश हो जाएगा, कैश पूरा 100% कैश।
We next checked the ground reality in Haryana, this time for paddy. The existing MSP for high-grade rice crop is 1,888 rupees. But private merchants would pay far less than the minimum floor price. Moreover, wholesale traders like this man, Sanjay Garg, at Samalkha, see no threat to their business from the new legislation.
एक बार बताओ, जो हमारे पास मोटा धान पड़ा हुआ है, माल तो बिक नहीं रहा है। वायु डल 14-15 रुपया होना चाहिए। डॉक्टर साहब, जो नया कानून आया फिर तो हरियाणा में तो सब कुछ बदल जाएगा आपका। नो नहीं आ पाएंगे, फिर कौन आएगा जब मंडी में आपको सुविधा पड़ेगी कितनी चीजें। तो मतलब आप लोग अब उसके बाद भी आप लोग रहोगे। हाँ रहेंगे। आप कमीशन एजेंट के जो आपका काम है वो चलेगा। तो पेमेंट हमारा हैंड टू हैंड हो जाएगा? दर पेमेंट हो जाएगा कैश। हाँ फिर लोग जैसे आज माल गया है तो कल ना परसों हो जाएगी। नहीं वैसे तो कैश मान लो, कैश मान लो, कैश ही है। बड़े आपकी लाल रखेंगे। नहीं एक चेक होता है, नहीं कैश, सारी कैश ही नहीं।
Private dealers appear to be capable of arm-twisting farmers even in states with strong mandi system. For a sector that employs half of India's population, greater safeguards for farmers might be needed to supplement the reforms. With Jamshed Khan and Nitin Jain, this is India Today's special investigation team.
The reality, therefore, of what happens on the ground when it comes to MSP and the roles played by the Commission agents. We'll continue to track the farm reforms and their impact across the country. I want to leave you today with two images. The first image is of one of the great sons of this country. It's the 113th birth anniversary of Shahid Bhagat Singh, the great revolutionary freedom fighter who laid down his life even before his 24th birthday, fighting for the independence of the country. Sometimes you wonder, what would he have thought, seeing the current state of affairs of our country? For Bhagat Singh, human dignity mattered more than all else. Rather than appropriate the man, appropriate his values is all one can say.